Yo, what up? How's it going? Today's video, we will be doing a tier list for the North American LCS, or just LCS, because I rebranded for the LCS. So a tier list for the teams. So this will be a tier list based off of a team strength for spring split, not for the year. So this is not based off of the year. This is for spring split. This is team strength, not where they will place. This is based off of my opinion of team strength. So take it easy on me. I don't think my list is that controversial. But anyways, this is what it looks like. I'll go in and explain each team and why I think they are where they are, but this is what it looks like. We have the S tier up here, the A tier, B tier, C tier, and then the lone D tier right here, which I'm not so sure about anyway. So, but we'll explain. It gets a little bit squirrelier with the bottom teams, but the top teams I'm pretty sure about. But anyways, that's what the list looks like right here, and then we'll jump into explaining why this looks like how it is. I don't think my list is that controversial. By the way, I put them into tiers based off of like S, A, B, C, and D. So I think a lot of the teams are pretty close. I didn't put numbers by them. Although I could put numbers and just put them in this order, and I'd be fine with that. I could just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that be the placements. I wouldn't be super confident in that, and that being the placings that we would see at the end of the spring split. Because I think this season, what's really cool about this is I think honestly all of the teams are really competitive. Even Optic has a competitive roster. Some are more competitive than others. I think Aframoose said it the best. I watched an interview with him the other day, and he was getting interviewed, and he said he was asked about their team and what he thinks about it, and he said what he thinks about their prospects of winning. He says, well, I think a lot of teams have the ability to win. I'm paraphrasing here. He says, but I think a lot of teams have the ability to win this year, which is cool. But we have a lot better chance of doing that. So while I think all of the rosters have have a lot of tools to enable them to win. Just the rosters at the top have a lot more agency. So the S tier, the A tier teams have a lot more agency, but that doesn't mean the B or the C tier teams couldn't, somehow, finagle out a championship in the spring split or somehow, So I think a lot of the teams still have a competitive roster. But anyways, I'm going to switch this to the dark mode screen. It's going to make the TSM logo and the 100 Thieves logo disappear, and the color coding kind of mess up. But this is just to be easier on everybody's eyes. Real quick, but anyways, boom, dark mode. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Cool. So we're going to talk about the S tier teams real quick. So in the S tier, we have Team Liquid and Cloud9. So this shouldn't surprise anybody that these two are up here. So Team Liquid, obviously the returning champions of spring and summer. If you remember from last year, spring was a long time ago, but they weren't as dominant. They finished 4th place in the regular season and kind of squeaked out a title. It kind of looked like TSM was going to make the dream run, and then they get knocked out in the quarters somehow. It was kind of weird. It was kind of a weird playoffs. But they kind of squeaked out a win, but then kind of dominated in summer. So they have the returning Impact, top 5 in his position. Pretty obvious. He's pretty obviously top 5 in his position. Xmithy, probably the best jungler in the entire West. Pretty undoubtable there. I don't think that's that controversial of a statement. Jensen, top 2 mid laner, top 3 mid laner for sure. In the West, or not necessarily in the West, but top 2 in LCS for sure. Doublelift, probably the best AD carry in the LCS, and then so they clear upgrade in the mid lane, and then clear upgrade at support. Core JJ, world champion. I watch a lot of LCK. I'll be 100% honest. I don't watch a lot of Gen G games because they're not that exciting of a team. But I watch almost every single LCK game, so I did watch a lot of Gen G games. And I don't know if anybody watching this is very familiar with Gen G, but they weren't very good last year. Even though somehow they made it to the Worlds, they weren't very good last year. But when they were good, the parts of their team that was good was actually their bot lane. Was Roar and Core JJ was like the core of their success. You know, Core JJ, yeah, huh? Was actually the strong point of their team. That's how they gained success over other strong bot lanes in Korea. So Core JJ is a very good player still. So even though Gen G had a really poor showing at Worlds, and had a poor showing actually in LCK, they made the gauntlet run somehow. They beat Griffin and Kingzone and all of them. They somehow did it. It was through their bot lane. Their bot lane was actually the core of their success. So Core JJ is still a really good player. So this is a really, really, really good pickup. So even though he comes from Gen G, this is actually a really, really solid pickup. So if Team Liquid can carry over the success from last year, and there's no reason why they couldn't, and clear upgrades in the two positions that were their obvious weak points on the map, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to have great success this year, barring some meshing issues. Having a better roster doesn't guarantee success, but it definitely, helps, So having that. All right, so we have Cloud9. Same thing with Cloud9. They kept most of their roster. So they have Licorice, Sven, and Blabber. So they're running, that 7-man roster still. So they have Licorice, Sven, and Blabber, Sneaky, and Zazel. So that core that they still have. And then they just swapped out Jensen for Niski, and they still have Golden Glue. So, probably a downgrade. I don't know much about Niski because I actually didn't watch EU at all last year. I watched 2 playoff games. I watched like the finals. I'm gonna watch EU. I'm watching EU this year because I actually want to pay attention to it, but I just didn't have the time last year, so I only watched LCK and NA. But I'm gonna watch all 3 of those leagues this year, and NA, EU, and LCK. But anyways, we got Niski and Golden Glue. I'm a huge Golden Glue fan. I think he's actually top 5 in his position, maybe. Oh no, there's a lot of good mid laners this year, but he's definitely in conversation for top 5 in his position. Last year especially, he was top 5 in his position in North America. And then everything I've heard about Niski is he's a very good player. He seems to have a really good attitude. I've watched some of their behind the scenes stuff. So they seem to really like Niski, and if he can mesh in well, then they have Niski. If he doesn't mesh in well, they got Golden Glue. So there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to carry over the success. They've went to Korea. They've kept up their boot camp. And they've been scrimming. From all the interviews I've heard from Sven, he said they're just smashing people in scrims right now because they haven't taken a break. That could hurt them in the summer split, people getting burnt out. I know that's hurt TSM in the past from getting burnt out at the end of the year. But this is talking about spring split strength, team strength. So that should help them going into the spring split. Sven's been saying they've been smashing everybody in scrims because they haven't had to work on teamwork or anything like that because they've literally not taken a break. They took 3 weeks off from Worlds. They took 3 weeks. They took a couple weeks off, went to Korea, took a couple weeks off, and then started scrimming again. So there's no reason why they shouldn't come out the gate stomping. They might lose their first game against Liquid, but then stomp everybody after that. So so Cloud9's looking really, really strong. All right, cool. So now down to the A tier teams. So I only have 2 teams in the A tier team. So I have TSM and 100 Thieves. I'll put it back in this mode so you can see it. Boom, hurt my eyes. But there we go. Am I still recording? Yeah, there we go. Cool. We have TSM and 100 Thieves. All right. So I'm just going to go through the roster of TSM really quick, and then we'll talk about each player. So we got Broken Blade, Grig, and Acadian, Bjergsen, Sven, and Smoothie. Cool. So we'll start out with Broken Blade. So I'm probably like everybody else. I don't watch Turkish League, so I didn't actually. I've only seen the highlight reels of his actual professional play. I've tried to catch his stream every time it's been on. Seems like a really smart player. Every time I watch his stream, everything he does. I play a lot of top lane, so when I watch his stream and how he talks about the game, and he deals a lot with Acadian and Sven, and the way he talks about the game is really intelligent, which all the top laners are. So that's really good to see, and he seems really mature about how he talks about the game and how he handles what's going on. Which is really good to see. I really like how he talks, is what I'm saying. I was someone who was really hyped about Mike Young when he got signed by TSM, and then the first time I ever heard him get interviewed, I was like, oh, I don't know. I really hated how he talked. So I don't know. That's something weird. I really didn't like how he talked. Like his Mike Young has a bunch of confidence issues and stuff like that. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Broken Blade. Broken Blade's a really young, really talented player. So I'm really hot on Broken Blade. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be top 5 in his position. I think he's going to be really good this year. I think he is going to be an upgrade from Haunter. I think Haunter had a really down year. I hope Haunter is going to have a comeback year. I really like Haunter as a player. I think he's going to. Oh, the nuke alarms are going off here. There's a nuke testing every Wednesday, so don't worry about it. Anyways, I'm really hot on Broken Blade. I think he's gonna have a good year. I think he's a really good player. So anyways, that's why we have him up here. I think he is an upgrade from Haunter. Anyways, we have Grig and Acadian here. They are going to be sharing time. I don't think the original plan was for them to share time, but Grig has a wrist injury. So Acadian, I think Acadian is a solid jungler. Probably not top 5 in his position, but a solid starter in the LCS. Grig is also a solid player. Everything I've heard from, I watch a lot of the TSM behind the scenes. Everything I've heard from, interviews from Bjergsen, interviews from staff from TSM, they really like how Grig communicates. They really like how he talks about the early game, and he's a really independent player. Basically, when they had to make the swap from him and Mike Young, Mike Young needed his hand held during the entire game and needed to be micromanaged, but Grig kind of can manage himself and can make decisions with the team. So he's a really mature player in that sense. So Grig and Acadian seems to be really mature players in that sense, which is really important for a jungler. I don't know if he's like a really controlling. I don't think either of them are really control the pace of the game, kind of like Smithy does, but they can at least control what they can provide into the game and can manage that with their players. So I think they're both solid players. They don't need their hand held by their laners. So they're not a hindrance to their laners. They're just like they can provide support to their laners. So I think they're solid junglers. They're not a hindrance. Like Mike Young felt like a hindrance last year, even though Mike Young was like popping off the year before. So I think it's solid players. Definitely the weak point of the team. So definitely the weak point of the team is probably going to be a jungle. Hope they prove me wrong. But I think, and not a super weak point, I think it's going to be a solid position. But if we had to pick a weak point of the team, that'd be the weak point. All right, Bjergsen speaks for himself. I don't think I need to talk about that. Probably the best player in his position. Don't even need to talk about that. Pretty simple. Sven had a really good year last year, despite like what anybody else would say about that. Sven actually had a really solid year. I think his spring split was kind of down, but summer split was really good. He had some really good games towards the end. You can even hear interviews from his peers. He was all team 2, I believe. You hear interviews from his peers, even like Double If talked about like you can hear interviews in the spring. He was like, yeah, Sven's playing better than me right now. And even Double If will say like, you landing at Sven, you can't do anything. So that's really cool to hear from that. I think Sven is definitely top 3 in his position, even with like Bang added to the league and stuff like that. So he's either second or third in his position for the league. So I think Sven speaks for himself. I don't think I need to explain that much more. Smoothie. So Smoothie, great addition to TSM. A lot of their issues they were having last year, from everything I've heard from TSM, revolved around how the disconnect between Mithy and the rest of the team. A lot of different strong opinions about the game. And Smoothie is definitely a strong opinionated person about the game. For everything I've heard from the team since, it says they really like how Smoothie thinks about the game. So let's hope that smooths over pretty well. He's a playmaking support. I think he's a really good player, a really good mechanical support. I never thought Mithy was a very mechanical support. He was brought in for his way that he thinks about the game, and everything I've heard from TSM is they really didn't like the way he thought about the game. So having the addition of Smoothie is a clear upgrade. So I really like the roster TSM puts together. I don't think it's the most exciting roster to put together, unless Broken Blade is just a beast. He's like the new Licorice, which I think he could be. Could just be like the new Licorice, and then they have just like the crazy solo lanes, super powerful bottom lane, and then Their jungle, holds it together, and they could have a super impressive team. So, really good team here. I talked about TSM forever. All right, so now let's get down to 100 Thieves. All right, we got Someday. I think Someday speaks for himself. I mean, he was solo carrying during the funnel meta, not being the funneled person. So I think that speaks for itself. Someday's a really good player. So that pretty much speaks for itself. I don't think I need to talk about him too much. We got Onda over here. So Onda had to fill in pretty big shoes. He got filled in for Meteos and actually performed really well. He wasn't doing that great on FlyQuest, I don't think. I forget the team he played for before. He played for another team before. But he wasn't very impressive. Maybe Golden Guardians? I don't know. It wasn't all that impressive, but he actually had some pretty good games on Zen and a couple other champions. He had some pretty good games on last year. So Onda's not that seasoned of a player, but pretty solid games. He's a solid jungler, kind of like Acadian, just a solid jungler, gonna get you through the game, not gonna be a hindrance to your team. So it could be a really good player this year, could improve a lot. So solid player. Huhi's pretty solid mid laner. Maybe could get to that top 5 in his position. Maybe get back to that. There's actually a lot of solid mid laners this year, so maybe not. But I think it's definitely an upgrade this year from Ryu. I think Ryu had a really bad year last year. I was ready for some type of roster change with Ryu last year. Ryu is on their coaching staff now, which I'm fine with. He was struggling. Ryu was struggling. I think Huhi's definitely an upgrade from Ryu, and I think the synergy with Afro, they seem to think about the game a lot. I'm not just saying the synergy because they're on the same team. I mean, just interviews I've heard with them is they've talked a lot about the way they think about the game, and is a lot the same. And I think Hui brings a lot of anybody who has a lot of pocket picks is really good in draft phase. Draft phase is really important for me when I watch games. Is really important. So having a powerful solo laner and then a solo laner who can just draw on a Aurelian Soul ban, like, come on. And that champion's getting buffed. I'm not saying just having an Aurelian Soul. He has a lot of other good champions. So it's definitely a solid mid laner who can hold his own against these guys. Definitely an upgrade from Ryu. Okay, Bang speaks for himself. Bang had kind of a down year last year. I think SKT on its own had a down year, but Bang actually had some pretty good plays last year, especially around in Spring Split whenever Kai'Sa came out. Like, I saw the most insane, like I didn't know things that Kai'Sa could do until I watched Bang play. I don't watch LPL, so I didn't see Uzi do some crazy stuff. But like right when Kai'Sa came out, and I just saw Bang like dive in 1v3 and get a triple kill, and I was like, what is happening? Bang is definitely a good player. I'm really hot on Bang. He's a very, very, very good player. I'm not just like one of those people who like, oh, Korean world champion, definitely, upgrade, good player. Bang is a very, very, very good player. Yeah, I'm very, very hot on Bang. I really like Bang. So if you don't know anything about Bang, you should look him up. Very, very, very good player. I'm not just saying that because he comes from SKT. He's a world champion. He's a very good player. He's not one of those players that need an introduction. But he did have kind of a down year last year, and he's looking to improve this year. I think he's going to have a really good season this year. I really hope so. I really like him as a player too. So really happy about this. Cool. Afro Moose speaks for himself. Really solid player. Team leader. All that good stuff. So I don't think I need to say anything about that. Cool. FlyQuest. We got Viper. So this B tier, we're going to move down to B tier. I got FlyQuest, CLG, and Golden Guardians. So this is the biggest tier right here. I got 3 different teams in here. This one was kind of hard to decide. I almost put Echo Fox in here, but I don't think they quite fit in here. But anyways, we got, this is in no particular order, but kind of in particular order. I think I put FlyQuest first. I think FlyQuest put a respectable roster forward. They got Viper, Santorin, Pobelter, Wild Turtle, and JJ. So cool. Let's go through the roster. So FlyQuest had a pretty good summer split last year, and I think they had a definite upgrade in their mid lane. A downgrade in their top lane. But we can go through the roster real quick. So we have Viper, downgrade from Flame for sure. Flame had a pretty good year last year. Flame's a very good player. Don't need to talk about that. Everybody knows who Viper is. I think Viper has the potential to be a really good player. I watch Viper stream a lot. He's really smart. He's not a Ribbon one trick anymore. He has pretty good Aatrox play. I watch him play a lot of Aatrox. So I think he could have a good split. Who knows? He did played pretty well in academy. So who knows? If he plays real good, I don't think he's gonna come hot out of the gate like Licorice, but I think he could have a good year. So maybe he probably won't be as good as Flame right out of the gate, but you know, maybe in summer he might be as good as Flame, and we could have a really good top lane. Anyways, cool. I think there's a lot of good top laners, so he might have a hard time at first, but I think Viper's a good player. Santorin had a really good year last year, so it was really good to see, really good bounce back year. I really don't believe in players having bounce. There's not not that I don't believe in it, but there's not a lot of history of players coming back from being good and then sucking and then coming back. There's not a long history of that in League of Legends, because League of Legends is not that old of a game. But Santorin's definitely made a comeback. He had a really good year last year. He had a lot of good. Here's some games for sure. He had a lot of good Camille play. I remember there was a game they were losing, and he had some really good Camille play. I don't remember the specific game, but I remember being really impressed. So Santorin had a really good year last year. Pobelter, he actually had a monster spring split last year. One of the best players in spring split last year. He was like in MVP running for a little bit, and then he kind of fell off a little bit. But people always forget how good Pobelter is because they just remember Worlds and they remember like MSI because he has such bad showings there. Because that's like obvious whenever they go there for whatever reason. I don't know why he performs so bad there. I don't know why he always performs so bad at those competitions. I don't want to say he's just outclassed because I think NA has some really good mid laners. So if he's going to be outclassed at Worlds, I think he would also just be outclassed here. But he's actually a good mid laner, so definitely a career upgrade from Keen, I believe. So hope he's having a good. He had actually a really good spring split last year, so if he can repeat that success, Michaels will be in good shape. Wild Turtle completes this hit pretty good year last year. Just repeat the success from last year. JJ continue to improve from last year. A pretty good season. Cool. CLG. All right, coming back from the dips. All right, so. CLG had a very bad year last year. So, all right, we'll get the roster. We got Darshan, Wiggly, Power of Evil, Stixay, and Biofrost. Cool. All right. So, as I said before, I don't believe in players who are once good coming back from the depths. Now we have Darshan. All right, Darshan had a very down year last year. Was not very impressive. I do think Darshan is a very smart player. And I do think Darshan has the potential to have an up year this year. I think he has a lot of competition. There's a lot of very good top laners. You know, I mean, just look at this list. We have a lot of very good top laners, so it's going to be a tough road. But I think Darshan could do it. I think he's a smart player. And if you notice, I say this about a lot of people that they could do it, so it's going to be tough. You know what I mean? So not everybody can do it. So, but if anybody can, maybe Darshan can do it. So. I think he's a smart player. I think last year, you know, a lot of the plays you'd watch him make felt really desperate. I think he felt a lot of pressure to try to make CLG win some games because he's like the leader of their team, you know. So maybe he'll feel some of the pressure come off with Power of Evil coming on in the team, Biofrost kind of stepping forward a little bit, kind of having Rainover off the team. So maybe they'll feel a little bit better. So maybe he'll play better this year. Maybe he'll feel a little bit less pressure on himself to try to outplay so much because he tried to make so many stupid outplays. Like you'd watch, like, I don't know, the games did not look good. That's all I'm trying to say. I can't think of anything specifically right now, but there were some bad plays in spring and in summer that felt really desperate. Can't remember off the top of my head, but they were definitely there. Cool. We got Wiggly. Wiggly played really well in academy. He's probably the best player in academy. If you don't know anything about that, look it up. Not much really else to talk about Wiggly. Rainover is definitely the worst performing player on their team, so good to see Wiggly getting to play. Cool. Power of Evil, definitely top 5 in his position. I think that's probably an upgrade from from what they want from their team. You know, he's like Power of Evil is like a lane kingdom type of player. You know, he wins lane, he pressures his enemy, so it's a powerful solo laner. So if the meta kind of stays how it is, then that'll be pretty good for them. Stixay and Biofrost, that's a pretty powerful lane. That's a really good bottom lane. That's probably one of the best bottom lanes in the league. You know, Stixay is a really solid player. I think Biofrost is maybe one of the best support players. And that's not just me who thinks that. A lot of their peers think that. And I've heard Sven say many of times that Biofrost might be the best support player. He always has his own support. He'll always say, I think Smoothie and Mithy and Biofrost probably the best supports in NA. That's what he always says. But a lot of their peers always mention Bifrost. I mean, I always just have flashbacks of his Rakan play on TSM. So, Bifrost is a very good player. So, I'm pretty hot on this roster. Let's see if they can pull it together this year. But who knows? Cool. Golden Guardians. I think they put together a pretty respectable roster. We got Haunter, Contracts, Froggen, definitely an OA. Cool. Haunter. Big fan of Haunter. Really down year last year. Let's see if he can. I hope he can pull it back this year, kind of like Darshan. I think Haunter had a much better last year than Darshan and has more upside. Less to come back from, so I think he has a better chance of coming back from that. I think he's just a better player overall, so so I think Haunter can bring it back for sure. So it could be top 3 at his position again. Who knows? We got Contracts, pretty solid player. When he was on Cloud9, you know, he was top 3 at his position maybe. You know, he was a rookie. He was a really good player, rookie of the split, I believe. Kind of, you know, I don't know if he fell off. I mean, his team was just so bad. And when your team is that bad and you're playing jungle, like, it's so hard to tell what you're even doing. So it's hard to even like tell what Contracts is now. It was good when he was on Cloud9, so that's what I'm remembering. So if he's like how he was on Cloud9, then all right, we'll be in pretty good shape. Froggen, hard to judge. When Froggen left the league, he was a good player, top 5 at his position. If he comes back at that level, this is going to be a good team. So we'll see. Definitely, I think he's a really solid player. He had the highest KDA in the league. On the worst team in the league. Doesn't really mean anything. But I think he was definitely the best player on Golden Guardians, and that's why he was kept. You know, I think the Contracts and definitely were definitely the best players. So it's kind of really hard to tell, you know, what type of player he is. I think he had some pretty solid play though. So really interested to see how he does with an actual roster. OA pretty much speaks for himself. OA is a really solid player. You know, as I said before, he was one of the weak points of Team Liquid, but that's because Team Liquid wants to create a world champion roster, right? And so, like, a weak point of a world champion roster is still a player that can be, you know, an NA champion roster, you know? So definitely still, maybe, you know, definitely top 5 at his position. So, you know, we have a top 5 at his position, top 5 at his position. Maybe he could get top 5 at his position, you know? Maybe top 5 at his position. So, pretty solid team right here, for sure. All right, cool. Now we're on to the C-tier teams. We have Echo Fox and Clutch Gaming. You know, I have Optic at D tier. They maybe could be C tier. But you know, somebody's got to be last, so that's just why. That's just why I have them D tier. I thought it'd be lame if I didn't have a last place team. But anyways, all right. So we'll start out with Echo Fox. We got Solo, Rush, Phoenix, Apollo, and Hakuho. Cool. So we'll start out with Solo. All right, Solo. You know, definitely bottom 5 at his position. You know, something about Solo, you know, he's on Clutch last year. I don't think he's a bad player at all. It's kind of hard to judge because when on Clutch, everybody talked about him being the pressure valve. He just sponge. He got the Dyrus treatment. He just gets camped every game because everybody would just force on his lane because he was the weak point of the map. Or at least it looked like he was the weak point of the map, so they would just pressure valve. So it was kind of hard to tell. But he did that job pretty well. You know, he'd play tanks and he'd absorb that pressure. So it's interesting to see if him play a different style, if he'll do better. But I think he had a solid split. You know, I believe it was his rookie year. So I think he had a solid split. I think he's a solid player. So solid player at his position. He can hold his own. Not going to int your lane. So solid player. Rush, last time he was in the league, was an MVP. So really good player. Hard to judge. He was on KT last year. He only played a handful of games. Played like 1 or 2 games in the playoffs. So really hard to judge how he's going to play this year. I mean, he was on KT, which was like one of the best teams in the world, and he only played a handful of games, but because Score was a starter, which was like, you know, top 3 player at Worlds, you know, or like top 3 rated player at Worlds. And I think he may have been, yeah, he was like rated number 2 for Worlds, you know. So it was hard to get any playing time behind Score. So it's really hard to judge how Rush is going to come in, but I think Rush is a really good player. He could be the best player at his position now. He could be better, you know. He could be number 1 at his position this year. So they could just have an amazing jungler again. But it's kind of hard to tell because he hasn't played in a year basically. He played a handful of games. Cool. We got Phoenix. I think Phoenix had a really solid year in spring. Echo Fox was a really strange team last year. I had a lot of ups and downs. Yeah, really strange team last year. I think Phoenix actually had a pretty solid spring split, and then he got cut from the team for DeMonte, which I think was a weird move. I think they were doing that for import slots or something because they wanted to play Lost in the bot lane. It was like a weird thing they were trying to do. I don't know. It was very strange. Ride hard or die was their thing they were saying. Anyways, cool. But I think Phoenix had a really solid split. I think there was also some toxicity things, but if that stuff gets figured out, I don't speculate on that stuff because I'm not in the team house. So I don't know. So I don't speculate on that stuff because I'm not in the team house, so I don't know anything about that stuff. So I think Phoenix is a really solid player. He has some really good Azir play. So I'm happy to see him back. I thought he had a really good split in spring. Cool. Apollo and Hakuho. Pretty solid bot lane. Could maybe be top 5 bot lane. Apollo, one of my favorite players. He's a really solid player, a really consistent player. Hakuho plays really good on the playmaking supports. So really good players right here. Just a really solid bot lane. Something Double If says though. I listen to a lot of what peers say about whenever they like scrim against each other. I think that's important. That's like the only insight I can get. Obviously I'm not in the practice room. I don't get to like be around the players, but something I can get is when I can hear interviews or streams where people are talking about the players when they play against them. That's the only authentic thing I can get about other players. And for example, I hear a Double If talking on a stream or in an interview, and he says, he's talking about when I play against Sven and Mithy, it's like a wall that I can't get through. And he's like, but when I play against Definitely and Matt, like, it's like pudding. He's like, but and if I play against Apollo and Hakuho, I don't feel anything. I'm just CSing, and then I do whatever I want. So there's that. So there's that to think about. But they don't int your lane. And I know they're working on it. I know Apollo is a super hard worker. He's a grinder. He's a grind lord. So respect, mad respect. So maybe Echo Fox can do something this year. All right, we got Clutch Gaming. All right, they have a really weird roster. So we got Huni, Lyra, DeMonte, Piglet, and Vulcan. All right. So something about Clutch Gaming. I heard an interview with their GM, and their GM basically said, we're going hard or we're going home, basically their strategy they did when they picked their roster. So they said, we're just picking the most volatile roster we can, and they're either going to be really good or they're going to be really bad. Hence the Huni, Lyra, and Piglet draft, or basically the Huni and Piglet. That's the way they did that. And then it basically was budget after that, because who really wants Lyra, DeMonte, and Vulcan? You know what I mean? Huni kind of speaks for himself. He had a really down summer split. I think he was dealing with some health problems, though. I think he had some health problems, and then also I think he was just he looked really burnt out. I'm not really going to speculate on that stuff that much, but he seemed pretty burnt out. Echo Fox seemed kind of in disarray, but had a pretty down summer split, but was super, was popping off in spring. But if he can get back to spring split, can be definitely top 3 at his position. Lyra was very unimpressive last year, so I don't really know what to think about that. So very unimpressive. Had some good things on Envy. People always said good things about him on Envy, but very, very, very unimpressive last year. Got outpathed every game, and didn't do anything. DeMonte, I think played solid for a rookie, but when you look at the players he's gonna have to play against, Jensen, Golden Glue, Niski, Bjergsen, Huhi, Polo Belter, Power of Evil, Froggen, Phoenix, Crown. You don't like his chances stacking up, so definitely going to be bottom 5 at his position. So you don't really like that. All right, we got Piglet. Could be good or could be bad. Played pretty well in Academy. From all accounts, super toxic player. And I heard an interview with him just last year. Super toxic player. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't speculate with that too much. You know, it might just come out toxic because he's Korean and he's speaking English. You know, I don't want to speculate on that too much because I'm not in the team house and I don't know what's going on. And Vulcan seems to like playing with him because he's played with him the whole time. So he seems to not mind. From all accounts, is what I think I hear is he still thinks he's the best AD carry in the world, which is fine to think because Froggen thinks he's the best mid laner in the world, and he's definitely not. But that's a fine way to think. I think you should. I think that's fine to think. You should think you're the best in the world because you should want to be that, and that's fine. So I'm not going to speculate that on that too much because I'm not in the team house, so I don't know. But based off of just play, when he did get playing time, it wasn't that great. And their academy team was okay. You know, it didn't stomp people. You know, Cloud9 stomped everybody in academy, but they also played, you know, their LCS roster in academy. But if Piglet thinks he's the best AD carry in the world, he should be beating the LCS roster. So I don't know. Anyways, Vulcan played pretty solid in academy, but this isn't academy, so has some pretty steep competition in the bot lane. So I don't think this team's very good at all. There's something to be said. I don't know anything about this because I've never been around this type of environment, but they say there's like there's something where Korean players get a buff when there's other Korean players around. Like where like Huni and Lyra and Piglet will play better together because they'll be around each other. I don't know how much that is true because I've obviously never been around team houses and known that. But I've heard that's a thing from like podcasts and interviews I've heard from coaches. But then the flip side of that is there can be a disconnect from Damonte and Vulcan from that. But I don't know if that's actually true or not. But I think this team's gonna do bad. I put them C tier based off of roster talent. Just if they didn't have Huni, they'd be the worst team in the league. But let's just say that if they didn't have Huni, they'd be the worst team in the league. They're right here just because they have Huni on the roster. Let's be real. Because if Huni's name was Solo, they would be F tier. Okay? So let's just be real. All right, D tier. So Clutch Gaming could easily be in the same tier, but I just picked a team to be last. Both of these teams. Clutch Gaming might be the worst team. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is just based off of recency. All right, we got Dokla, Meteos, Crown, Arrow, and Big. All right, Dokla. All right, Dokla did not play very much in the spring split. I think he had a couple games in the spring split. They did not go very well. Played in the summer split, did not go very well first half. Had some pretty good games when he started playing split push. He started playing like Fiora and stuff like that. Maybe some Camille, I don't know. He started playing split push and that was before the meta was like split push meta, and it was actually really good. So it might be good. So Dokla might have a good year this year. I believe in Dokla. But I also just believe in Impact, Licorice, Broken Blade, Someday, Viper, Darshan, Hanser, you know, Huni. So he might have a hard time, but I think Dokla could maybe have a good year. But you know, there's just a lot of talent in the top lane. Anyways, cool. So probably bottom 3 at his position. All right, we got Meteos. Meteos definitely a good player. He was cut from 100 Thieves when 100 Thieves were doing really well. And then 100 Thieves started doing better without him. I think it was more personnel issues, though. I think they were having a disconnect between him, the coaching staff, and maybe some of the other players. I'm not going to speculate too much because I don't know. But they obviously didn't want him, and it was hard for him to sign to another team because whose first choice is Optic. So there must have been some type of reason why teams didn't want him. So that's something to think about. Because he's a high ticket name and couldn't get to another team, and a lot of teams needed a jungler this year, so kind of weird. So I don't really know what to say about that. He had a pretty solid year, so I'm just gonna base this off of play. Maybe could be top 5, probably could be top 5 at his position. So that's not that bad. All right, Crown. Crown had a really bad year last year. Crown, I said I don't watch a lot of Genji games, but I watch a lot of Korea. And Crown didn't even get a lot of playing time. He got swapped out for Fly halfway through the year. And he only played during the gauntlet, which there's something to say about clutch players, because he played during the gauntlet when they made their run. But he was also, you know, on Malzahar duty, on Galio duty. He was that type of player in there. But I know he can play the carry champions. I know he likes to play Talon and stuff like that. So, I like Crown as a player. I know he's a grind lord. I know he grinds really hard. I know dude, he's a grinder, bro. Like he goes in hard. He goes hard or he goes home. And I believe in the Crown redemption story. I don't normally believe in redemption stories. I love them, but I normally don't believe. I believe in the Crown redemption story, and I think he can do it. But that being said, based off of recency, he played really, really bad at Worlds, and he was like on basically Malzahar and that type of duty. He played really bad in LCK last year, and then even the year before when they won Worlds, he was their worst player, you know, worst performing player. So, I mean, they won Worlds, but, you know, there's something to say about that. But I think Crown's their best player. Crown's definitely their best player, but I believe in him. I believe in Crown. I believe in Crown. You know what? You know what? Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Wait, what is happening? I'm Jax. I gotta change the colors now. Let's do this. Alright, I flipped the script. Flip the script on you. Boom. Alright, I believe in him. I believe in him. Clutch Gaming is going to be the worst team. Calling it now. Clutch Gaming, worst team. Alright. Cool. And then we got Arrow and Big. I think Arrow and Big played pretty good at the end of the year. When Big came in, they started playing a lot better. I've heard a lot of good things about Big's shot calling, and the way Big plays in lane. I watched a lot of good Hex Flash plays with Big, which were pretty nice. So Arrow had a pretty down year. Maybe he could bring it back. I'm not a big believer in Arrow, but maybe he could bring it back. But I believe in Crown. He can bring it back. But anyways, my bold prediction for who's gonna win the spring split. It's Team Liquid. Team Liquid's gonna win the spring split. Team Liquid's gonna win the spring split versus TSM in the finals. Boom. There it is. That's what it's gonna be. Anyways, I think all the teams are gonna be very competitive. What happened to the CLG logo? What happened to the CLG logo? No. Where'd you go? I missed you. So, anyways, all right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye. 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 Where's the record button? Bye-bye. Okay, I found it. Bye-bye.